Oh hey, they're saying there's actually going to be a new Half-Life game. Well, unfortunately, Valve, since it's been like 20 years since the last game, the market's open for someone to come along and do Half-Life 3 and do it all on their own. Here's what that looks like. George Orwell said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme, and I think the current trajectory of the indie shooter scene is the perfect example of that. We've had an explosion of small developers looking back to the foundational titles of the genre, like Doom and Quake for inspiration, so I guess it was only a matter of time before some people decided to go forwards a little on the timeline and make something more reminiscent of Half-Life and Sin. Enter the emerging subgenre of the Half-Like, small-scale shooters that are nevertheless much more ambitious than some of the other recent games in the genre, seeking to create a kind of varied and evolving experience where it feels less like a shooting gallery and more like an organic journey. Don't get me wrong, I heavily fuck with stuff like Dusk and Medieval, but it's nice to see that the genre isn't stagnating and people are actually trying new things and trying to advance the medium. It feels almost like the shooters are getting back on track and taking the course they would have taken in the late 2000s if COD hadn't basically fucked everything up. ADACA is a game that it makes me sad that more people aren't talking about because I think in a lot of ways this is sort of a semi-revolutionary title. It doesn't do anything that we haven't seen before. Like I said, its entire shtick is that it's heavily inspired by Half-Life, but it's the fact that it manages to accomplish what Half-Life 2 did in terms of gameplay and atmosphere, but with a one-person dev team and like a fraction of the budget. Just a heads up, I'm gonna be gushing over this fucking thing for the next however long this video is, so if you want to hear me bitch, go watch my TDR 2000 or Illumination videos or something, because I think ADACA is a game that is really emblematic of the direction that video games need to go in as a medium, but probably won't because there seems to be an industry-wide death drive or something. I'm gonna start off with the back-of-the-box statements first. ADACA is an indie first-person shooter inspired by both Half-Life and Stalker that features a constantly evolving gameplay loop where the player is seamlessly transitioning from combat to exploration to puzzle-solving to platforming, from level to level through varied environments, and a minimalistic narrative that is interesting but ultimately never forces the player to engage with it beyond the bare necessities. Now for the Zombie Hobo 49 version of that pitch. You're a spacefaring hooligan who crash lands in a White Forest Roblox map and fights against the Make-A-Wish Combine with both an absurdly large arsenal of weapons and a robot arm equipped with an on-demand gravity gun that I honestly thought was more fun than the original gravity gun. The introductory cutscene gives us a brief dossier on our Gordon Freeman stand-in and some personal details. I can only imagine the varied response that this garnered. At the main menu, you'll notice two game modes, the main story and something called Zone Patrol. The main story is the narrative and linear set of levels, and Zone Patrol is some free roam thing. I don't know. I didn't fuck with it because my policy is that once the credits roll, this shit is getting uninstalled. As stated earlier and as announced right here on the main menu screen, this product is brought to us by just one singular individual, a developer by the name of Cirrus Pendrake. Pendrake? Oh, fuck. Please don't be a fucking furry. Please don't be. Oh, fuck. I don't actually really care, but it is good fodder for a video gag, and plus this furry also apparently knows how to make a really good game because this shit was the kind of thing that reminds me why I even play video games in the first place. You start up the story mode and get your obligatory training sequence that anyone with basic motor skills and at least 10 minutes of prior history with the FPS genre can probably breeze through, and then you crash land on the setting for the game's story, the titular ADACA. The first individual you meet is this doctor guy who introduces himself by sawing off your arm and replacing it with an artificial limb. I've never left my southeastern homeland, though my studies of other cultures tells me that this is not a common form of greeting, which made me immediately distrust him. But then he told me that I can use said limb to pick up objects and throw them at people, which made me immediately trust him. The first objective that I received was to escort this man of medicine out of the wreckage, which was complicated by the fact that the local police force is in the area and they haven't yet reached their excessive force quota for the month, so we should probably get going on out of here. Right from the start, I learned to love the gravity gun in this game. The initial introduction to the combat in ADACA is a good one. The weapons feel satisfying to use, the enemies are dynamic and fun to fight, plus the gravity arm adds in several hundred additional layers of depth. So we fight our way through the remains of the once great spaceship and begin the game proper, and eventually start the journey with Alright, Alright, they better get this to episode 3. Don't blue ball me like Valve did. Whatever, it turns out that Doc is a member of some local militia that's shacked up on this planet and mines it for scrap and other resources. Based on the posters they have everywhere, I'm going to assume they're ANCOMs, which is weird since they're an actual militant group and not just a bunch of LARPers, which is sort of unusual for ANCOMs, but this is fiction, so it's not really a big deal. So we join forces with the People's Free State of Twitter stand to break the shackles of oppression foisted upon us by the Make-A-Wish Combine, and we're going to do this in the world of Roblox and aid by a grotesquely expansive arsenal of weapons that you can only carry 2 of at a time. Where are motherfuckers learning to do this sort of godless bullshit? Sorry for the weird cut, everyone. I blacked out, and when I finally came to, the script for this video was just 30 pages of me ranting about how much I hate this mechanic. I'm not sure how good of a viewing experience that actually makes for, so I just removed it all. Back to the story. Most of the members of the militia are fairly anonymous, but there's one member that stands out as a frequent companion. Meet the long-lost Megablox Alex Vance figurine, who's here to help you in your journey across the planet. It's at this exact moment, though, where my attention was diverted from the first encounter with the game's only other real major character, and to the weapon that was now occupying the lower right-hand corner of my screen. What you're looking at there is the shotgun. As established in the Trepang 2 video and the Daikatana video, and actually pretty much every video I've made on a shooter, the shotgun is the most vital ingredient in the recipe of what makes a good first-person shooter. It doesn't have to be the best weapon, nor the coolest, nor the most useful, but what it does have to be is the one weapon that you can rely on never being an unknown factor, something that can always absolutely, positively fuck up any and everything that enters your field of view within a 12-meter radius of your barrel. I said all of that, and like 2 levels later you get one that's the exact same except it's fully auto. You also get the needle rifle from Halo Reach, and an FAL, and an M14, and a PP-19, and the roster of weapons in this game just fucking goes on and on and on. It is honestly pretty awesome and reminds me of how the selection of weapons in the beta version of Half-Life 2 was crazy expansive. From the camp, the Odyssey begins, an adventure across the wild wasteland of ADACA with the fuzz and hot pursuit. To add to the troubles, the cops are not the only hostile group I encountered, as I also came across the last Branch Davidians who were mutated by the ATF thermite deposits, as well as all of the wildlife that I will mount on my wall later. The main goal here is to enter a region known as the Zone, which... Wait a minute, this game is inspired by Stalker now? Yep. There's even anomalies. The dev really threw everything under the sun in here. Basically, the zone in Attica is a lot like the zone in Stalker, a large and dilapidated industrial sector that's overrun with mutants and hostile militants. The goal for this section is to get to, like, the Combine mothership, or whatever it is, for reasons that I can't remember, but that I'm sure were noble in nature. This journey gets complicated when you get captured, though, and thrown into the slammer. Boom! Valve has been one-upped by one person in the Roblox engine. Western civilization has fallen. Everyone's gotta go. Donate to my Patreon and you'll find out how to get a girlfriend, and let's break out of prison. I've kind of glossed over it a little bit, but I want to slow down actually and take a moment to really appreciate just how much variety there is in this game. I already talked about all the weapons earlier, but there's like a billion different enemies, and the environments that you journey through is just this shifting gallery of every kind of locale. The level design is incredibly good from both a visual standpoint and a layout standpoint. Pendrake really internalized the design principles codified within Half-Life and Halo. The way forward is almost always very clear, and there's all these subtle guiding lights that make sure you're smoothly getting from gunfight to gunfight and puzzle to puzzle. Adding to the whole variety angle is how dynamic the gameplay can get. Aside from how fluid the combat feels, there's also a healthy amount of puzzle solving and exploration, which keeps the player engaged with the game since it's never repetitive. The thing about boomer shooters is that they kind of rely on a sort of stifled progression. You play 8 levels, get a bunch of weapons and abilities, then lose them all and start from square one at the start of the next episode. I'm not complaining about this, they kind of have to do it in order to keep the player glued to the screen, but it gives the player evolution this kind of start and stop feel. In a game like Attica though, where there's a more cohesive marriage of gameplay and narrative, that gets kind of circumvented since the gameplay relies on more than just introducing new ways to shoot different enemies. None of that is a criticism of boomer shooters, by the way, that's just an observation about how this kind of retro shooter does things differently from other retro shooters and what I kind of appreciate about it. Side ran over back to the prison riot. Alright, time to bring the hammer of God down on these fascist fucks keeping us down. It's just like ADACA, man. Remember ADACA? Fuck the cops, man. ADACA! ADACA! Unlike John Cazale, however, we survive the encounter with law enforcement and make it to a series of ancient coastal ruins where there's a fucking war going on for some reason. Also got the flat cannon, which was like the best gun in the game. This reminded me of the snow level from the first Halo game, you know, Assault on the Control Room is what I think it was called. It's you versus everyone else on the goddamn planet because at this point in the story, most everyone else is dead, and the feds have started sending down hell divers and power armor to ruin your day, so here's your two primaries and a handgun. Good luck, champ. So I did it, because no matter how many weapons you can carry, this game's still fun as fuck, and made my way into a dark cavern filled with rejects from a Tumblr creepypasta, and on the other end is the final stretch of the game, which results in a boss fight that bugged out and that I couldn't actually interact with in any way, so I just put a code in the final door and talked to some weird guy who I guess is like the bootleg G-Man, and then the game ended. If you'll look at the main menu though, you'll notice that there's another option for gameplay, and that's Zone Patrol, an open world game mode that is supposed to be more directly reminiscent of something like Stalker or Fallout. Now what's really cool about this mode is that I did not play it because remember, credits means next game, bye bye ADACA, sorry. Being for real though, this game was really awesome. I really feel like games of this scale are the only viable path for the industry moving forward, and if people like Pendrake could get together with a team of maybe 4 or 5 other talented people that all gelled together, I think we could see some great things happen creatively. Out of curiosity, I actually checked what homie was up to on Twitter, and apparently it's a new game. Oh fuck, it's Anthro shit. It actually still looks kinda cool, and it's an MSim. Just like Alone in the Dark. Well, that's ADACA, folks. This is a no caveats recommendation from me. It's a great game, and Pendrake did some good work with this shit. A really cool shooter that manages to do something a little different with the whole retro shooter sales pitch. And before anyone says anything, yeah, I'll play Zone Patrol eventually, but it just didn't seem like it would really add anything to the video other than another 60 gigabytes of B-roll. I do genuinely think that we need more of this kind of game. I'm sure that for one person it was a pretty big undertaking, but like I said earlier, add in another 3 or 4 people who have different creative strengths and all of a sudden it's a lot more doable and a lot more high quality. Not to say this game isn't high quality, because it absolutely is, but I think there's potential that a few added voices with some different areas of talent could make a lot of contributions to the end product, though with that being said, I think there's something to be said for games that have a really singular vision like this and Cruelty Squad. Either way, game is good and I enjoyed it. Pendrake's new game looks cool and this one was cool, so there's a bright future in game development ahead there. Hopefully, anyway. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go remind my friend that he still hasn't watched the copy of Dog Day Afternoon that I bought him on DVD 7 years ago for his birthday. I doubt it'll result in him watching it. Doesn't matter though, he must be reminded of his transgressions. Also, that movie's awesome, dude. Just watch the fucking thing. Hey everybody, that is another game down, and it was a pretty good one, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Kind of something a little more ambitious, like the Trepang 2 video, but yeah, if you did enjoy it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all your YouTube outro stuff that you always gotta say, because that's just sort of, you know, the deal with it. But I'd like to also thank my patrons over on Patreon, Spec Teams 1 Slingshots, Zorio the Gazer Patron, and Lev, as well as the members here on YouTube, Saiga, and Brigador24. Really appreciate all y'all. Appreciate everybody who watches this. I mean, y'all know how it is. I say it at the end of every video. Anyway, other than that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.